Glue by Paul Mullin. Read by Bob Williams.
The fat flakes melt to fat drops as soon as they hit, then streak quickly down the windshield. Liskey had switched the wipers off 20 minutes ago, but left the cruiser's engine running for the heat, so he and the kid don't freeze. He shouldn't even be working this graveyard shift, but he traded with Mike Sharp so Mike could drive up to Fort Dix to meet his wife coming off deployment. Liskey figures someday he's going to stop doing all these favors no one ever pays back. He's got a life too. Such as it is. Bobby's gone thoughtful in the back seat, and Liskey's grateful for the respite. When the radio abruptly squawks, he turns the volume low. Peace and quiet. Quiet and peace. What he wouldn't give for just a little bit more of it. So, of course, right then, the kid spoils it. I'm not even that high. Did no one ever teach this kid how to talk to a cop? Or how not to? I'm sure you're not. I'm not even high at all, tell you the truth. Not anymore. Liskey doesn't respond. Surprisingly, he's rewarded with silence. Bless it. Let it linger. But Bobby isn't having it. I don't know why you had to call my mom. Shit. His mom. Well, it was either that or take you to jail. So? Take me then. Somebody'd still have to pick you up eventually. Maybe, yeah, but at least it wouldn't be the middle of the night. She needs her sleep. She works 3 jobs. Should have thought of that. I should be in jail, you know. If not for this, then... Why? What'd you do? Liskey regrets it as soon as he asks. That abandoned house, up above Pretty Boy? Liskey nods, but keeps the back of his head to the kid. The one that burned to the foundations? Yeah, you guys didn't seem to work too hard trying to solve that one. Liskey knew for a fact they worked it for weeks, and they pretty much knew who did it. But the brass, on Liskey's recommendation, decided it wasn't worth the potential heartache. No one had lived in that house for decades. It was a nuisance structure, used by hobos and high school kids for nothing good anyhow. I guess it was assumed it was kids, skylarking. It was me. So, I guess we were right then. Huh? Kids. So, listen, I'm confessing. Duly noted. A little bit of silence again, then, aren't you worried I might escalate? For fuck's sake. Come again. That's what you call it, right? When someone goes from small crimes to bigger and bigger ones, escalating. That's the law enforcement lingo, right? But then maybe you're not really law enforcement. Are state troopers even really cops? Liskey smiles to himself. Kid thinks he's Jesse fucking James. Wouldn't know hardcore thuggery if it bit him on the ass, which it just might if Liskey ever had to throw him in proper county lockup down Towson way. The silence thickens again. Liskey knows it won't last. Aren't you worried about me escalating? Bobby finally asks, more quietly than before. He's in earnest now. Can't worry about everything. I'd never sleep at night. Liskey wonders how many years it has been since he slept more than 3 hours straight. Certainly not since getting back from that second tour overseas. The infamous, shitty second tour. In fact, probably not since the night he first met this kid. They insisted that night on swabbing his tiny little hands, bloody as they were, for gunshot residue, but they let Liskey keep holding him, his soft, chubby cheek tight to Liskey's scratchy face. 5 o'clock shadow from yet another graveyard. This shift as a city cop, Baltimore proper, Highlandtown beat. At the time, an island of shit-kicking, up-to-no-good white folks, swimming in a sea of poverty-stricken blacks. Bobby's mom had the wrong kind of boyfriend, and she and Bobby had been staying in the guy's apartment in the lower half of a formstone townhouse, overfilled ashtrays and damp shag carpeting that crunched with empty crack files. It was the kind of place that always wound up giving Liskey the willies if he lingered too long in it, though all creepiness had been blasted away by a vaster horror that particular night. Kid must have found the boyfriend's piece under the couch, or maybe lying in a drawer. What's one more gun in Charm City? Just another vicious link in an endless, mundane chain of circumstances. And why is it always you that busts me? Come again? Liskey can hear him shifting around back there, getting antsy. I've been arrested 3, detained. Whatever. Detained. I've been detained 3 times, and every time it's been you. Well, that sounds like you're one lucky bastard. Didn't know better. I think you got a hard-on for me. Liskey finally turns and looks at the kid. In the darkness, he just catches a gleam of defiance in the teenager's eye. Kid likes pushing people, especially authority. Liskey can practically hear the buzz of adrenaline coursing under the kid's skin. How many punks did he see with this look in their eyes back in the sandbox? And before that, on the corners of the Eastern District, his old Baltimore beat. Trouble. Trouble. Always looking for it. Never quite believing it'll come, even though it always, always does. Liskey smiles, nods, turns back front and stares through the streams of wasted snowflakes on the windshield. The kid persists. I mean, really, who knows? Maybe you're some kind of faggot's got a crush on a teenage boy. Liskey turns his close-cropped, scarred head and glares at the boy over his arm, letting the full menace of his uniform vibrate in the closeness of the cruiser. Not really the sort of thing you want to say to someone bigger than you. Are you bigger than me? And with handcuffs on. Speaking of which, can you loosen these up a bit? Liskey turns away. The show is lost on Bobby. They're fine for now. Holding that kid limp to himself that night, waiting for backup, Liskey knew with more conviction than he had ever known anything that his days as a proper city police were numbered. He just didn't know then that it would be an unforeseen war in the desert that would separate his Baltimore City life as a cop from his Baltimore County life as a trooper. Bobby goes silent in the backseat for the longest spell yet. Did the kid fall asleep? If so, Liskey's not having it. If he has to stay awake, so does the kid. In a loud voice, he pipes up. You know, I've never been to the West Coast. Never swam in the Pacific. Just never got around to it. Bobby stirs. What? So don't be like me. What? Swim in the Pacific. Make it a goal. Why can't you swim in the Pacific? I just haven't, is all. So why don't you? What are you, dead? No, just old. How old? None of your business. A ballpark. 40s. Yeah, so dead. I see your point. Finally, it was time to give the little boy up, that night forever ago. The social worker held her arms out. The blood, which was everywhere, had dried between Liskey's cheek and the boy's, sort of sealing them together, and it stung a little bit when Liskey peeled them apart. The little guy woke up and started screaming. The reek of urine stung Liskey's eyes, and the wet warmth on his chest began immediately to grow cold, as the lady now rocked and shushed the child. Headlights wash over the cruiser as a car makes the turn off York Road. Liskey looks back and catches a glimpse of Bobby in the white light, eyes closed, dirty blonde hair, long and feathered like teenagers did when Liskey was a kid. Bobby had snuggled himself deep into his weather-worn leather jacket, again more like some punk would have sported decades ago, rather than anything the kids wore today. This is your fault, says Bobby, nodding at the car as he hears it pulling up. Don't go anywhere, says Liskey, getting out of the car and pushing his khaki felt Stetson squarely down on his brow. He locks the doors out of operational habit. He has no illusions about this kid making a break for it in the Hereford's own snow. Bobby's aunt, or Bobby's mom, whatever you want to call her, rolls down the window as Liskey approaches. She lights a cigarette and sucks on it with a disgusted look. "You couldn't just take him to jail? Is that what you want me to do?" She gives a sharp, self-consciously callous shrug. "I don't know. You tell me. Is he ever going to learn?" "Dunno. I suppose maybe if—" Liskey lets it go. "There's no point in this tonight." "You suppose maybe what, officer?" "I suppose it's hard to learn when there are things nobody's willing to tell you." This again. She practically spits it. Her outburst of breath and smoke momentarily masks her face. Liskey makes a ponderous, almost stupid sort of nodding motion of his head. It's a subconscious trick he's developed up over decades of pulling people over. Slow everything down. De-escalate. But the lady's seen the trick before and is unimpressed. "You of all people," she adds as an accusation. "He's gonna find out," says Liskey. "Somehow, on his own, you know that, right?" "Why? Why do I know that? Who's gonna tell him? Hell, who even knows anymore besides you and me?" Liskey starts nodding again, this time genuinely and helplessly. "Other people know. People down in the city, if not up here." Then she asks the question she's asked so many times Liskey's lost count. "Are you gonna tell him?" "No," he says right away. He always says it right away. "Of course not. And you know that. It's not my place." "Oh, but it's mine?" Liskey feels her hate for him like an oven blast. "Some part of him knows," he says before he can stop himself. This is new. He's never said it before, barely even thought it. Some part of him remembers. She stares at him in horror. Then something switches, and she relaxes into an unpleasant, smug smile. "Phil. Can I call you Phil?" Sure. "I do think somebody might need help, but it ain't Bobby, Phil." "Yeah, okay, maybe that's true, but I'm not your responsibility. Bobby is." "Barely." "No, not barely. You made a decision. Okay, maybe it got forced on you, but you made it. You own it. He's yours." "Phil, that kid basically does what he wants now. You try stopping him." "I've done all I can. In a year, he'll be 18, and then there'll be nothing no one can do, except y'all putting him away finally for the things he's done." "But how's that gonna help?" "Maybe he'll learn then." "You really believe that?" "Nope." He stares at her, but she stares through her windshield, smoking, determinedly. "Okay, I'm gonna go get him now." "Yep," she says. Her car spits stones as it peels out of the parking lot. Bobby's El Camino, snow finally sticking to its primer gray hood, remains behind. Maybe he'll pick it up tomorrow. As soon as Liskey had uncuffed him, the kid crawled into his aunt's, his mom's, back seat and stretched out. He's probably already asleep as the red taillight's glow dies behind the night's deepening snowfall. And so nothing changes. It just keeps rolling on and on until, blam, it changes. And then nothing's ever the same. Ever. And no one knows what to do. So they just keep doing it. And no one understands how anyone's connected, and wouldn't want to if they could.
Thanks for listening to Glue by Paul Mullin. This story was recorded at Cedar House Audio Productions in Seattle, Washington, as part of Crowdmouth Lit, a project conceived at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic to get money in the hands of performing artists who need it when they need it, and offer in turn some original stories to supporters for their generosity.